views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away.
Why, hello there. This is Patty Hunter. Welcome to my show. This is called Patty's Page. To my left is my co-host, John Dickmeyer. Hello there.
Hello, Patty.
And two of my special guests here are Christel Neuendorf. How do you say that?
Neuendorf. It's okay.
I'm so silly. And beside her is Rachel Jaseph.
Good to be here.
At least I got that one right. So, you are here in Fort Wayne.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't normally work here, do you? Or where are you from?
Well, I do actually now.
Now?
Yeah.
Well, what did you do before?
Before, I grew up not far from Fort Wayne and ended up here, but in between served as a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod missionary in Peru and the Dominican Republic. So a little farther south than Fort Wayne.
Yes.
Served there for about 5 years as a missionary and then moved back here to Fort Wayne.
You're married?
I am.
So is your husband a pastor or?
My husband, Phil, is a first-year seminary student.
Well, that's why you're back here.
Yeah. So he's here at Concordia Theological Seminary in town, and that's kind of what brought us back to Fort Wayne in the first place. And now I'm serving at Shepherd of the City Lutheran Church.
Shepherd of the City Lutheran. And how about you, Christel?
Yeah, very similar to Rachel here. My husband and I served in Panama and then in the Dominican Republic.
How did you two meet?
We met at Concordia University, Ann Arbor. So way back then. Yep,
so what are you doing here then?
Yeah, so my husband as well is at the seminary. He's finishing up.
Oh, so he's done
year.
vicarage.
Yes, he finished.
So he's finishing up to actually be a pastor.
Right. So very excited about that.
Do you have any idea where you're going?
No, not yet. We definitely would like to return to the mission field, Latin America, if that's Lord's will.
So this is a career missionary for the both of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you go back to Latin America yourself?
My husband and I have talked about it a lot. We'll see where we are.
God leads you.
Yep, in about 3 years' time. So
3 years? Oh, you got long.
So both of you are language enabled, I suppose, that your Spanish is very good.
It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming.
Español.
Like any language, it just takes a while to.
Well, where'd you learn the language? Down there?
I started in high school, had to choose a language. So to anybody needing to choose a language, pick Spanish, and maybe you'll end up.
You'll never know.
But so I started.
What do you do down in Latin America, both of you? Christel?
Yeah, so when we first started, we did a lot of, we were started as volunteers, so did a lot of English as a second language classes, communication administration type things. Later on, now doing missionary care, so caring for our missionaries, transitioning them from their time here in the States to the field where they're serving.
So they get used to the culture and everything
right,
like that.
So including language, culture,
language,
lots of different things.
That,
so.
Yeah. Oh, language, yes.
That's a big one.
And how about security when you're down there in a different country?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Rachel would agree, just kind of always being very aware of your surroundings, understanding that you're not really from there, so it's a different place. So being very kind of careful of what your surroundings and understanding where you are and being a little extra careful.
What is the difference between down there and up here?
Oh, goodness. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess
Did you go into culture shock when you went down there? Or?
in some senses, for me, I first moved to Lima, Peru, which is a city of about 10 million people. So
Wow.
that in itself caused a little bit of culture shock for
Huge.
me
Right.
after having grown up farming in a farming community outside Fort Wayne. So, so that in itself. But then,
mean,
yeah, there's just a
whole
lot
bunch
of
of people.
adjustment.
Oh, yes.
Anytime any person moves to, from rural to city, but then add different language, cultural customs, and things on
And
top of
food. Did you get used to the food?
it. Oh yeah,
That was the easy
Their
part,
food-
right?
yeah, that was the easy part. That was the easy
Their,
part.
their food.
A lot of diversity in the food, and all the places the two of us have been. Always something good to eat.
Yep, very
So-
much.
I can imagine that you're talking about food. That
I am.
The biggest, the Dominican Republic wouldn't be that difficult, but Peru might be a whole bunch different, because that's a different culture yet over just having the Spanish overlay.
What kind of, is it Portuguese or Espanol or which one?
Espanol, Spanish, yep.
Do you find a mixture of the natives and Spanish, or just mainly natives?
Yeah, that may actually be good for Peru. That's a good
Yeah, I
question
mean,
for...
over the years, every country has their own history, right? So over the years, there's just a mixing of different cultures. So there are Peruvians who have a lot of ancestry of the Inca people,
Inca.
even. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago,
Aztec.
right? But then the culture has mixed as well with the Spanish heritage too. So
Are
so
they
many
based-
people,
Yeah.
in kind of the same way, in a sense, as the U.S. People can trace their lineage back to different places. Yeah,
So they must have been there for thousands of years, their ancestors.
yeah. I'd have to brush up on my Inca history to know really
right.
how far. And there were other people groups too, but yeah, they're very. The Peruvian culture is very in touch with their history.
Are they Christian?
Yeah, I mean,
Some of them are, all of them?
overall,
Overall?
the country is very Roman Catholic.
Oh.
However, the way in which Christianity was brought to that country, in many cases, was quite violent, and so it wasn't really
Españols.
Christ-centered necessarily all of the time. Many times people weren't really taught the gospel. They were forced to kind of convert, but in name only. And so over the years, that's meant that
Yeah.
certainly there are a lot of Christians, but there are a lot of people who carry the name
but
but
not-
don't know what it means.
Yeah. Did they have, like they had in North America, taking the kids away from their families, the natives, and making them go to school?
No, not so much in Latin
Okay,
America.
thank
Yeah,
God.
right.
Completely different down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
That was a very sad
we've
situation.
we've done things differently in North America
Mm-hmm.
from the way that the Spanish culture would have dealt with people. But my question is, in Peru, did you learn any of the native language?
You had to.
I mean, everyone speaks Spanish there. There is kind of a resurgence in recent years, has been a resurgence of learning Quechua and teaching Quechua in the schools. But by and large, at least in Lima, in the big city where I was, a lot of people didn't speak it. But the heritage and the names of streets and locations had still been maintained. But out in the outlying parts of the country, in the highlands and in the jungle, there was more of that.
Well, I
So
don't-
you stayed mainly in Lima.
Yeah, predominantly. That's where
So,
our work was.
this mighty fortress, Mercy House, what's that?
Yeah, so Castillo Fuerte is what we called it, which means mighty fortress. This Mercy House, this youth center, started as intending to reach out into a community where we previously didn't have a presence. as the Lutheran Church in Peru. So colleagues and I would go and we hosted some medical events. We hosted VBS, Vacation Bible School, and that opened doors for us to get to know different people in that community. And over time, there was also a church planted next to it. So it was intended to reach out to the youth in that urban center.
Christel, with your ministry, what was it that you had done in Panama?
Yeah, so a lot of activities in order to get to know the community. So initially doing a lot of ESL type activities or having just activities for the kids. As Rachel mentioned, VBS, Vacation Bible School, a lot of types of things when the children didn't have school. They were at home and able to have free time, so a lot of times we'd offer different activities for them, different Sunday school type things.
Do you have doctors with you?
We do now. We have a nurse that's on our team right now. She joined us last year, so very blessed to have her with us. So.
Do you have Doctors Without Borders, if you do have doctors?
We particularly haven't worked with them directly, but I do know that they have come to our countries where we've served. So yeah, a huge blessing for us. We also have part of Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. We have Mercy medical teams, and so they're groups of doctors and nurses and health professionals that come together.
People who are pregnant. Women who are pregnant.
Right. So
Are you pro-life down
yes,
there?
for the
Are
most
they
part.
pro-life in those countries, or?
Yes, I would say that there's very much an emphasis on family and preserving life and
Yes.
yeah. So.
Because I was wondering, certain UN are trying to change. The people from South America, make them feel ashamed or not doing what they're supposed to do, especially with abortion, trying to push it on them. I don't think that's right.
Right, yeah, that's not an agreement.
So, here in Fort Wayne, doing what you're doing in Fort Wayne, can you explain some of the things that you're doing related to the seminary and preparing missionaries? Because I think that's of interest. You know, a lot of people, they think, if we prepare people theologically and train them how to be missionaries, that's all that we have to do. We just send them out on the road.
Not cold turkey, no.
And,
Right.
and we don't do that cold turkey anymore.
Right.
How do they prepare you before you go down?
Yeah, so there's a lot of theological training at the seminary that pastors or deaconesses or whoever's at the seminary receive. But then once a missionary is called and they accept that call, they then go, like Rachel and I both did, we did orientation. And our headquarters is in St. Louis, Missouri, so we go there for a couple weeks.
Is it like a school, or?
Yeah, they have, it's usually 2 weeks of time of more theological missiology study, as well as understanding how to approach a new environment, how to work with the people that you're being sent to, as well as learning support raising. We're completely supported by churches and individuals for our sustainability there on the field.
How focused is it on the specific field? In other words, how much training would you get for, say, the Dominican Republic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So after that initial training, and we are able to receive our support from our donors, in Latin America specifically, we have an orientation that takes place in the Dominican Republic. And so that's when we do a lot of emphasis on language training, cultural training. Missionaries are able to follow other missionaries who have been on the field, learning how to do a visit, how to do a Bible study, learning how to kind of incorporate in the culture. And so it's a time of learning and learning how to learn a new culture, because after 4 months they'll be going to places like Peru.
Because they think different down there with certain customary cultures, whatever. And I just want to know, do you counsel any of the people there, or just people who are serving under you?
Yeah, I think as deaconesses, we provide counsel for women and spiritual care, especially, however, offering that to professional care as well if that's needed.
So, with the nurse, with the nurse, what is her duties then? Just like midwife or something like that, or do they have their own midwives in their own?
Yeah, so
community?
she's very much an advocate for the missionary, so someone who can navigate the healthcare system for the missionary, whether it's where she's at in country or other countries, and can be someone that you could call and say, I went to the doctor, they told me this. Is there something else I should be asking?
Does she just dispense medicine? Or?
No.
Oh.
So.
But there's medical care in
Oh,
all
thank
of the
God.
places that we've been.
So
Yes.
you're
There's
covered.
absolutely
So you
good
are
medical care.
covered when you're down there for medical stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Thank God.
I've been to the doctor in both of those places, and
You did
plenty of
okay.
people go to the doctor all the time. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just want to know how similar and how
Sure.
from down there. So.
Sure.
Well, let's see. I think that the interesting thing about being a deaconess, and a lot of people that were going to be listening and watching this program don't understand what it means to be a deaconess.
Yes.
Could one or both of you tell us what it means to be a deaconess?
That's right.
And how that starts and where that comes from?
Yeah.
Sure.
History of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, specifically, we're both deaconesses in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Different Christian denominations have deaconesses and have had historically deaconesses. Sometimes that have different emphasis, but so we're speaking from the historical perspective of Lutheran Church Missouri Synod deaconesses. But specifically in our church, there were deaconesses serving in different communities in Germany. And because of the history of our church body, when immigrants were coming over to the U.S. and planting churches and going out, they realized, and I will say at that time, deaconesses were also all nurses, medical nurses. So at that time, that was the emphasis, so they could go out and help these immigrant communities as they came over. So deaconesses in the Lutheran Church have had quite a long history. But the emphasis, now we're not all nurses. Many are, some are. Not all of us, though. I'm not.
Are you a nurse?
No.
I'm not, but I have great respect for nurses.
Yes.
But so even today, the emphasis for LCMS deaconesses is a lot on teaching the faith, mercy work, and spiritual care.
That's right.
So depending where a deaconess is serving, that could look very different. And she's there to support the pastor in his work as well. So not in any way to take his role.
No.
We have distinct roles, but...
What are your roles then?
Okay, well, I'll use an example. Right now, as a deaconess at Shepherd of the City Lutheran Church,
That's right.
as a part of the spiritual care that I'm privileged to do, I visit a lot of our homebound members who are unable to come, bring them a bulletin, do some devotions with them, pray with them, making sure that they, even though they can't physically be with everyone at church on Sunday.
But it's the pastor that does the sermon.
Sure, and the pastor certainly also does spiritual care, and he brings Holy Communion to our homebound members. I go and visit and talk with them and maybe remind them when pastor's coming by to bring the Lord's Supper. But so that in my role now is an example of spiritual care, as well as following up with folks who maybe haven't been in worship for a while and just wondering how they're doing.
Yeah.
Mercy work right now, we're doing a lot with to develop a community outreach center next to Shepherd of the City Lutheran Church.
That's good. Where is that?
So,
the Shepherd of the City.
That's
Lutheran
located
Church.
just 2 blocks south of Indiana Tech. So right on South Anthony, between the train tracks. Yeah.
And how about you, dear?
See, yeah, very much in caring for our missionaries as missionary care coordinator. Similar kind of what to Rachel was talking about as far as doing visits. identifying the needs and identifying ways in which a person, we can better care for someone, as well as being a part of the church and following up with people and looking for opportunities in which others can then go out and care for those in their community. So
What's your title?
Missionary Care Coordinator.
Yep, so deaconesses serve in a lot of different ways. I've known deaconesses who served in prison ministries
Yes.
With people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I've known deaconesses who work in all sorts of different types of parishes, congregations, who did urban outreach, ran food pantries. I mean, kind of the sky's the limit, and that flexibility is actually, I think, what probably drew both of us.
Yep,
I know it drew me
absolutely.
to the idea of this vocation.
I was in a congregation where the deaconess literally ran the church part of the congregation.
That good?
And administratively, and the pastor was there just to be the pastor and the spiritual advisor and the person that did the services. And it worked very well. And there was also a church school which operated aside from that, but she ran the nuts and bolts of the church itself and made sure that
Not really
everything
like a
happened the way it happened, and it worked marvelously.
Didn't they have a secretary?
What?
Didn't they have secretaries or anything like that?
Well, in effect, the church was small enough that she could do all the
the work.
secretarial work, the membership, and all the financial stuff, and it really helped with the pastor.
Sure.
Because at that point, the pastor was meeting on a regular basis with people before they communed. That was back in the old days.
Many moons ago. This was when you were in Peru, is it?
Yep.
Okay. How many LCMS missionaries are with you?
At that time, this was back in 2012, so about 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago. Let me think. They were about, we had some new people come on the field while I was there, so I'm thinking. The most we've had, I think, was maybe 6 people, would you say?
How about you?
Refresh my memory.
In Dominican Republic?
Yeah. Well, in the Dominican, there's probably around 30 of us. However, in the whole region, so not only Dominican Republic, Peru, but in the whole region of Latin America where we have missionaries, there's 91 of us. So
91 with
families.
families.
That's families, yep.
Yes.
So we're a sizable
good.
group, including Spain,
Spain
as well. They're part of our region. So those are your missionaries serving on behalf sent by the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. So
I think I'm right that there, before World War II, there was a small German immigrant community in a lot of the South American countries, and particularly in Argentina and Brazil. That was the core group for the Lutheran Church in South America. And I think maybe that was true in Peru, if I'm not mistaken, that there might have been at least a couple churches in Lima that were ongoing congregations that weren't really mission congregations.
Yeah, there are different Lutheran church bodies. Some of our sister church bodies are in Brazil and in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile, and there's some different Lutheran groups, that settled in Peru. I don't know exactly what time, but I know that they're there, and there's some German immigrant populations in some outlying communities there that I don't know much about, but I know they're
Do you have clashes between their spirituality and the church? the people down in Latin America, they have like spiritism or something like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, every country, and I should say every region, is very specific to a lot of the indigenous culture.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, as Rachel was mentioning earlier, kind of mixed in with Catholicism.
Mm-hmm. That's what I
And
was
so
thinking.
you have a lot of syncretistic kind of
Kinda
practices.
mixed
So
up.
there's kind of maybe the face of the church, or what we would think of as the Roman Catholic Church. However, there's a lot of deeper meaning that a lot of times is from indigenous religion. So I think in particular that we have dealt with, there's a lot of, we find ourselves in different kind of witchcraft type things and
Probably.
different kind of,
New Age or something like that, or whatever.
yeah, more within like indigenous ties
Yes.
of their.
So how do you communicate with, get through to them?
It's very
You spend
frustrating.
time with the people.
Get to
I
know
mean,
a relationship.
right. I mean, it may seem it's the simplest thing in the world, and yet sometimes the most complicated. But just showing an interest in a person, taking the time to visit them, hear where they're really coming from, and over time you get to understand why they think a certain way, what have been their influences to think that way, if they're familiar with the Bible, how are they understanding it? Are they seeing correctly that that everything is pointing to Jesus as Savior?
The doctrine, basically.
Right. Or are some of their ideas mixed up based on other cultural pressures? And that just takes time to get to know individuals. So we don't preach from the corners. That's not the method that we use. We do a lot of visitation and get to know individuals to be able to minister to them and to share Christ with them
Yes.
in a way
I
that
hear
makes
you.
sense.
Absolutely.
That's
Are
good.
some of these things, these cultural influences, are they immediately visible to you, or do you just discover them in daily life?
I would say yes and no,
Right,
maybe
yeah.
both. For sake of analogy, I would say there are layers. There are things that when you arrive in a place, you immediately notice. For example, the heat, the climate in the Dominican Republic means that culturally, a lot of people are sitting outside. And so
Right.
visiting them, just
Right.
because of that, that's something everyone notices. But some of the other things, the nuances of language,
Yes.
the way that history affects people's thought, that comes out over time.
Well, getting towards the end of the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you
Christina.
so much. This has been
And you,
wonderful. Thank
Rachel.
you.
Thank you. It's been great to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Thank
and
you for
chat with
coming
both
on
of
to
you.
my show. We should have you on again because there's so much to talk about. Well, listen, this is Patty Hunter. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
John.
you,
Thank
Patty.
you.
Thank
Patty.
you.
This has been great. Thank you.
So we'll see you next week. This is Patty Hunter, Patty's Page, and God bless you. Till then, have a blessed
Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love.